Oh, hey guys. How you doing? Doing good? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm doing fine myself. Well, we recently gotten some stormy weathers over here in Kansas, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing fine. Oh, and yeah, I apologize for the delay. I wanted to make sure that everything was accurate as possible, and so I do appreciate you guys willing to reschedule for this meeting. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So shall we get started? Okay. So for our first slide here, it's just family information. Just going over things, such as your guys' ages, salaries, social security, um, residence, retirement age, life expectancy, and your children, um, age 16, 13, and 11. And so, yeah, uh, everybody's all healthy, no concerning health issues. Um, oh, for me, yeah, I currently don't have any children. Currently single. Uh, yeah, my mom she wants grandchildren, but hopefully in the near future. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, for the next page or the next slide here, it's pertaining to your goals, concerns. Um, from the fact-finding stage or phase, from the initial meeting that we had. Uh, so yeah, these goals that you guys have is pretty typical. Funding for your children's education, funding for your own retirement, and wanting to be debt-free at retirement. And down here are concerns and area improvements, mortgage refinancing, and well, you guys mentioned about wanting to refinance to a 15-year mortgage, but after doing a bit of research on loans or refinancing, I found that you guys are better off staying at your current mortgage schedule because refinancing is not simply just having the term length. You're it's basically getting a new loan, and so currently your mortgage schedule is 139 payments left. If you were to refinance to a 15-year mortgage, well, it's going to be increasing the payments and increasing the term length to 180 months. So, yeah. Um, well, of course, we'll talk about it as we progress, or when we get there. Um, and for the next three are determining appropriate risk coverage. This pertains to insurance. They're just two noble areas: life and disability. The rest is all good. Improving investment allocation, maintaining proper estate documents, and yeah, again, we'll cover it as we move on through. So here we have the current financial snapshot. At the top here is just a condensed version of a balance sheet, noting your net worth, total assets, and total liabilities. And down below here are your financial ratios, which indicate an individual's financial health, how well they're able to handle, emergencies, managing debt, and to see if their investments are doing well. And so, yeah, these you have three areas that are doing quite well: liquid, debt, and return. However, savings ratios is not doing so hot. Currently, it's at 13% when it should be at 35%, from 13,000 to 48,000. So there's a difference of 34,000 shortfall. Now, when looking at the income statement, I noticed that cash flow is tight. So having $105 here, yeah, there's not much we can do with that. And just be aware that this is only considering retirement. It doesn't include other goals. So this 35% you see here should be much higher. If so for other goals such as education. Um, And speaking of education, we'll get right to it right away. So, you guys mentioned that there is a big situation change, it being from public to a private university, effectively doubling the college cost amounts from 17 to 34,000. And before we get to these amounts, the current education savings and the Bing's PV needs, I'll have to explain what these charts mean. So PV needs, you could think of as these are the amounts you need right now in the account. Because if you were to have these amounts, and if you were to use the interest rates or the growth rate along with the number of years, this number would grow to this amount. And this is the amount you would need whenever you're at withdrawal phase. Whenever you're at, attending college, or whenever you're retired. So, going back to these values here, if we were to take current education savings, 152,000, to satisfy Bing's current needs, PV's present value, so today's needs, you'll be left with 26,847. And this leftover amount can be used to reduce Celine's PV amount, which also thus reduces Celine's annual funding to 18,000, from 29,000 to 18,000. So, yeah. Now this is annual funding with no aid, no additional help. If we were to move on to the next slide, we can then talk about financial aid. So there is two types of financial aid. There is need-based and there is merit-based. Both for your guys' situation, there's a low chance of receiving either one. One because of the high income, and the other due to the competition. So while it doesn't hurt to still apply, it's just that the chance you'll be receiving is low, along with the amounts. For merit-based, since you indicated that they'll need 34,000 for their tuition, they'll typically be on the lower end for private universities. And typically price ranges for universities will be from 20,000 to 75,000. So with Warbler and Old School being on the lower end, typically there'll be less restriction for their offers or their their aids. But even if there's a chance of receiving it, I didn't want to account for the possibility, just because it's not guaranteed. So, but if they do receive merit-based aid, tuition amounts are reduced by 35%, and this is throughout all their years. And so here, I modeled out a scenario, which, if you noticed here, it was 125,000. Now it's being reduced to 94,000, and that's for all of their needs. And just like before, if we were to take current savings and satisfy Bing's PV needs, you'd be left with 57,000, which reduces Celine's annual funding to 4,000. It'd be from 22 to 4,000. That's quite a jump. So, yeah, merit-based needs or the merit aids is cool, because it does reduce quite a bit. 55,000 current needs and about 19,000 annual funding needs. However, I didn't want to model this out. So what I did is I modeled out a scenario where Adele returns to work, because you mentioned about return to work. So I figured I was looking at the typical salaries for a vocal coach, and it was ranging from 30 to 70,000 or higher, but I wanted to lowball it to about 40,000. And so I wasn't sure if you're employed through a company or if you're self-employed. But I modeled out for the scenario that you're self-employed. Oh, yeah. So okay, so that's good. Yeah. Um, but anyways, here's like a timeline funding breakdown for education funding using um, a what if scenario uh, that Adele was working or had a salary of 40K. So for the first 5 years, um, 2026 to 2030, 25,000 of Adele's income will go towards Celine's education savings, and 7,000 will go to her Roth. And I guess you can see down here, right, the breakdown charts. Um, Definitely with the inclusion of Adele, it helps reduce this funding need. Again, this is no aid, right? This is a no aid amount, and it satisfies the funding needs for Celine. I mean, well, just in total, but just for the first 5 years. Now, for the next 2 years, you can then reduce the amount of funding needs and redirect it towards uh, retirement, which is a 401k and Roth here. And the reason why it's 8.6 thousand instead of 7,000 is because of by now, I think after 2029, you guys will be both age 50, and there is a catch-up amount for retirement. So it increases by 1.1k. And yeah, retirement's coming up pretty soon. Next slides, and you'll see what I mean by the catch-up amounts. But yeah, here you've noticed that since Celine's funding needs is done, it reduces the amount to 21,000. Now it's just Shania to fulfill for her needs, and so just reducing it down to 7,000, that's enough to satisfy it. Okay. Mhm. All right. So now moving on to retirement funding. So using current assumptions or base facts here, with the goal of retiring to age 62, and using, of course, these current amounts: salary of 138,000, pre-retirement income 70%, and a combined Social Security amount of 30K, along with using the capital preservation model. There's a bunch of retirement models that we use or that we can use, but I chose the balanced model, which is this model here, which basically safeguards against longevity risk. And basically what this means is retirees outliving their retirement assets. So this entails saving a bit more than you normally would, but it's safe. Again, it safeguards against running out during retirement. So currently, your investment or present value investment assets that you have is 112,000, and over here to your right, this is 152. I'm sure you recognize this number. This is the education amount of 254,000 from your investment portfolio, and so this is the remaining. And so if we were to use this amount as a present value, it would then return an annual savings amount of 48,000. So under current funding, it's a deficit of about 30,500. And so if you were to just use nothing, right? This is if you were to use current assumptions, if you were to redirect retirement, entertainment, and loan expenses and funds to education, which would satisfy education needs, however, it would neglect retirement needs. So, yeah, and you'll see the breakdown next slide. But yeah, it would take it'll take you guys about 195 years to break even from the retirement funding deficit. So definitely under current assumptions, it's not possible to achieve this goal at age 62 or retiring at age 62. Yeah, yeah, I know it's kind of silly, but uh, you'll see it here. The next slide. So, yeah, I wrote here that education is satisfying, ending in year 2032, but retirement is not. And yeah, over the 7 years, you'll accumulate about 339,000 in retirement funding deficit, but 299,000, uh, 30,000 basically after some funding. And so here's the breakdown of the funding. Um, and yeah, again, I'm sure you noticed that down here it says auto or HELOC. Um, these amounts here, um, I'll talk a bit more about them next slide or next few slides because they do come back. But these are your debts, and auto loan will be done in about 2 years, while the home equity line of credit will be done in 4 years. But since 7 years has passed, so they're being included in the retirement funding equation here. So yeah, if after funding for education, you would have a surplus of about 1,500. But even then, right, this large amount from neglecting to fund, if you were to divide the deficit by surplus, you'd reach the silly number that we were talking about last slide, 195 years to break even. So, yeah, it's definitely under current assumptions, it's not possible. Okay, so now we get back to the scenario of Adele having a 40K salary. So just like before, um, it's the same breakdown where the first 5 years Adele is allocating 25,000 of her 32,000 net income to Celine's education savings and the remaining 7,000 to her Roth. All right, and again, this is like the same breakdown, but instead of education, now it's retirement. And so you'll see that instead of it being a surplus, now it's deficit. And down here, yeah, so I mentioned before about the all loan, the HELOC. These are the debts or the debts that will be, and the amounts that be free in the years starting years 2028 and 2030. And so here, right, 23,000 times 5 is about 117,000. This is the deficit from neglecting funding for retirement, and these are the debt amounts free from the loans that you can use towards funding for retirement. And yeah, they help out a bit, so it reduces it down to 91,000. And so once the Celine's done, they'll free up some resources for retirement. And now changes here are that Elvis increases his contribution to his 401k by 11%, and increasing his Roth to 8,600. And these amounts, I basically these are included or from the home, not the home, the auto loan and the HELOC. So those amounts from before, 8,100 and 1,800, are included in Elvis's 401k and Roth. And then Adele, she switches from 7,000 to 8,600 for Roth and 0 to 60,000 for her 401k contribution. And down here you'll see, the 32,000 net being reduced by the 7K college expense. Because this time this chart is focusing on retirement instead of education. So after all the funding is being done, or after all the amounts are being added up, you have a surplus of 4,000. And this is the deficit from before, but using the years 2031 to 2032 with these surplus amounts, you'll then reduce the deficit to about 83,000. So, yeah, we're slowly getting there to breaking even. Okay, so by now in 2033, education funding should be done now, and you guys could definitely start focusing solely on retirement. So um, your Elvis can increase his contribution to 22%, which is 30,000. There's Roth and Roth being the same for both. Adele increasing her contribution by 7,000. And here's a breakdown chart of the amounts here. And yeah, so just now after education is done, and with including of Adele's salary, you're now having larger surpluses that can help with prior deficits. So down here is a calculation of 83,000 divided by 26,000, ending up with 3.11 years to break even. So by 2036, age 57, you have broke even from the retirement funding deficit. And for the years thereafter, in 2037 to 2040, you can use these amounts to address other areas, like insurance, estate, or any other goals. And so before I was talking about catch-up, right? So these are the limits for 401k and an IRA, which is Roth or traditional. And since by now you guys are, especially coming to are starting here, right? 2030, around this time, you guys are age 52, 53. So you both definitely do qualify for the catch-up amount, and that's why you're able to come close to breaking even faster with these catch-up amounts. Yeah, 24,000, 7,500. Now it being 32,000, 8,600. So yeah, so definitely retiring by age 62 is possible, and funding for your children's education is also possible. It's just the fact that there's such a large income need, a large income gap. So with Adele, having at least 40,000 in salary helps out quite a bit. Okay, so now moving on to debts and mortgage refinancing. Again, you guys mentioned about retiring at age 62, which is year 2041. Well, at the current rate, you guys will definitely be debt free by age 59 in the year 2038, because your current mortgage is only 12 years left remaining. And I was also accounting for this too. So while the amounts that are used to fund for education and retirement, these are still being funded. And again, this your loan will be done in 2 years, and your HELOC will be done in 4 years. So yeah, just stay with the current payment schedule, and you'll be done by age 59. Now, yeah, down here, you guys mentioned about the refinancing to a 15-year mortgage. Well, again, whenever you do refinance, you're refinancing to a new loan, right? And so, as I said before, if you were to switch to this one, your monthly payments, total amounts, and timeline are increased, right? So here's the breakdown chart down here, right? So monthly payments amounts are increased by $317. The duration increased by 41 months, and the total amount that you'd be paying is increased by 137,000. So definitely, staying on the current mortgage schedule is the right move. Yeah. Yeah, because I thought that switching to or refinancing to a shorter term um, loan would, I guess, I don't know, have the remaining um, duration left. But no, it's an entirely new loan, so with its own payment schedule. But yeah, okay. Now moving on to insurance review. So I said before that there is about two notable areas: life insurance and disability. Here, your life insurance coverage is not bad. 1 million. It's close to the calculated amount that I have here below. 1.14 million. So, I'd say definitely try to increase the your current base value amount to 1.5 million, um, just to cover this additional amount. But the extra amounts can also help fund other gaps and goals. So, like traveling, um, wedding, perhaps. But yeah, so there's life insurance, and next part is yeah, disability. So again, with Elvis's employer basically providing their own disability benefit to its employees, it reduces Elvis's coverage amount by or to 43 to coverage at 43%. So about what, 27%? Because before it was at 30%. So yeah, the weaker terms by the employer, it reduces the coverage amount, which sucks. So my recommendation is to buy a supplemental policy, or if you can, increase the coverage to 70% of your current income. And this also applies to Adele too. Um, if she does find work, she'll need disability coverage. Same provisions and coverages as Elvis, up to or as high as you can to 70% of income. Um, and for the other areas of insurance, yeah, they're good. Health is a low out-of-pocket max, payroll, 80/20 co-insurance, long-time care. We can revisit this later, at a later date, because there's no concerning chronic health issues. Home and auto is a bit tricky because since you guys already qualify for PLUP or personal liability, typically you'd have to increase dwelling coverage to above or around 300,000, and auto to these coverage amounts. But since you already got personal liability, these amounts are fine. They're okay at the current amounts. 2040 coverage is fine. Um, and as for the personal liability coverage amount, 1 million is also fine too, because it covers your total assets of about 822,000. Okay, so now moving on to investment allocation. Um, you'll notice here, 32,000 cash is not being included. I excluded the amount from the or your guys' investment portfolio because typically this amount is used for emergencies, and so I didn't want to include it as the investment portfolio. Um, and so yeah. And here are your allocations for taxable accounts, or split by taxable accounts. 24,000 is in taxable, 152,000 is in education, 88,000 401k, and zeros in Roth. And of course, these are the current assumptions. So, when taking into consideration for your guys' pass score, or I forgot the acronym, it's portfolio allocation scoring system. I think that's what it means. But you guys return a score of 21, which reflects a moderate portfolio or asset allocation. So ideally, it's your equities fixed income spread should be 70% equities and 30% fixed incomes. Your current allocation is sitting at not 92% equities and it's on up 8% fixed income. When in actuality, to reflect this pass score, it should be 185,000 in equities, which is 70%, and 79,000 in fixed income, 30%. Now, this is fine and all, but the problem is that right, it's the time sensitivity for education. You notice that up here, over half of your portfolio is going towards income, or not income, education. And this is fine because of the short time need for Bing, because he has 2 years left until he enters college. But ideally, ideally whenever you need to withdraw from your portfolio, you should rebalance the portfolio from equities to fixed income to preserve assets. So, as stated here, as you near towards withdrawal phase, is a shift from equities to bonds. And going back, there are funds out there that automatically rebalance assets to the goal or target date. They're target date funds, and yeah, they're available for education, retirement, any sorts of assets. So it depends on which bucket they're in, but yeah, these are available. Because some people, they prefer to just set it and forget it, and so these funds exist for that reason, instead of having to manually go ahead and rebalance yearly, do an annual rebalance, which it does take a bit of time, but these are available for you or for anyone really. Yeah. So in about 2 years' time, this amount will dwindle, right? Because of the time sensitivity. Again, 2 years is such a short time. Okay. So now let's move on to estate documents. Yeah, I know, guys. It's I think we're halfway there, but just hang on tight. Yeah, there's still a bit more, but not that much. Okay, so estate documents. There's about 4 major areas here, but each area is important. So definitely be aware of their purpose, but the most important being the last will, right? Definitely update your primary backup guardians in case both you guys are gone. A trust document for a trust that you might have in the future that handles the asset distribution rules and processes. Appointing an executor or trustee to handle state affairs and manage a trust, and the structure of the asset distribution, when and how much. This is typically important because of immaturity, right? Children, they're typically they don't have the understanding of how important wealth is, and so most often times kids would just spend willy-nilly, and by the time when they're older, it's almost all gone. So having an asset distribution structure set in place helps prevent financial misuse. And now moving on to powers of attorney, POA. There's two kinds. There's healthcare and financial. So typically, if you're married, your spouse would handle your medical and financial affairs, but you can always appoint someone else that you trust to legally act on your behalf when incapacitated. Um, and the next part is updating beneficiary designations. So, as you might know, accounts they definitely have beneficiaries, and it's especially important for education savings account. And I'll talk a bit more about this later when the time comes. Um, but yeah, these are important to ensure assets are distributed accordingly because, believe it or not, these override last will's retirement accounts and payable on death accounts or transfer on death and payable on death, TOD, POD. And for the last part here is this is optional, but definitely consider creating a revocable living trust. Trader, so the one that makes it, has control to move assets, and you name a trustee to distribute the assets. And this helps avoid probate, which the core process of distributing your assets, and which delays and slows distribution. So yeah, these are state documents. People often forget about them, but they are important. So whenever you guys do have a chance, try to get these done. And we're finally moving on to tax. There's about two more parts. There's taxes, and there's the summary. So we just have two more big parts to worry about. So here, this is just giving you a comparison chart of the base facts and if a deal works. After doing calculations, you on both sides you'll be receiving a tax refund. Right. So this side's a bit less because a deal is working and bringing more income, which increases tax liability. But still, that $40,000 or that additional income is valuable. But yeah, so you guys live in a state with no state income tax, which helps a lot. And so, with these being such large amounts, you guys can submit a Form W-2 to your employer to update or reduce tax withholdings. Because ideally, you want these tax due or refund amounts to be as small as possible, as they measure cash use efficiency. And yeah, I did calculate itemized deduction, and this was the amount. But you guys are better off with using the married filing jointly standard deduction, which offers a bigger impact, $31,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. I forgot to mention these child tax credits. They're definitely helping out a lot too. 6,000. It's quite a bit, but there's a caveat, and it's with this slide here. The singers will lose. Well, I guess you and Adele. Well, yeah. As the child reaches age 17, 2,000 child tax credits will be lost. So here's a breakdown chart of what it looks like as each reaches age 17, right? So 8,000 here, 6,000, 5,000 here, 3,000. You're losing 2,000 in tax credits once the child turns 17. So by 2032, using the Adele scenario, you guys will be owing $530. And you can redirect entertainment and vacation expenses to satisfy a shortfall. But by 2031, Elvis, you and Elvis, right? Elvis and Adele, you both will be increasing your 401k contributions. And this will reduce tax liability, which then increases tax refund. And I'll show in the next slide here. So I made this chart with the idea of prioritizing Roth first, and then 401k plan. So going by this chart here, you'll see the tax due, or rather the tax refund. And again, you guys can use or submit a Form W-4 to your employer to update, reduce the tax withholdings. And yeah, there's a note here, Secure Act, right? So, this is 401k plan deductions are capped at 24,000. Catch-up amounts cannot be used as additional deductions. So, what you're seeing here, 34,000. This is the calculations here. 24,500 is the cap, while the additional amount, 5,970, which is 30,470, is the catch-up amount. This cannot be used as additional deductions. Otherwise, this amount would be much higher, but that's the rule. And yeah, so you guys doing well. Definitely a lot of refunds, even with the reduction in child tax credits, because of the large amounts of deductions for 1K contributions you guys are doing. So, yeah, things are looking fine, definitely. Okay, now we're finally at the home stretch. Oh man. Yeah, there's just about 6 more slides and we'll be done. But this is just to summarize what we covered. And so, yeah, using base facts, current assumptions, there's zero chance of funding goals. And of course, this is estimated using Monte Carlo analysis. Yeah, this is just a tool. It basically runs like 1,000 trials from various market conditions, above, average, and below. And yeah, after 1,000 trials, it's estimating that you guys have a 0% chance of funding goals. So, and that's due to the fact that there's just not enough time or funds to accumulate assets. So by 2032, over here, this diagram or this picture, assets will have run out, right? And again, this is just a chart showing the deficit. But since retirement is 15 years away, while college is 5 or 7 years away, we can partially delay retirement funding to focus on education. And with the inclusion, of Adele working or bringing home a 40K salary, even this amount, if you bring home even higher amounts, you'd have even a higher chance of funding goals. So yeah, it's just that this 40K or 32K amount after taxes, it provides the immediate funds to cover needs, satisfying education, retirement, and annual deficits. You guys can also reduce entertainment expenses to increase chances to 99%, but sometimes these entertainment expenses are a way to reduce stress. So it becoming a need rather than a want, But off to the chart here, as you can see, instead of assets running out by 2032, it's ongoing now. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It was a bigger timeline chart, but I figured that this was the most prevalent to focus on. But yeah, it goes on to until the end of life expectancy. Okay, and now for the next few slides, it will be a breakdown, a funding timeline breakdown, right? This is just, I guess, an easier review, or just to showcase how things will go. Elvis he's already allocating 14,000 to education. 10% is going toward retirement, and now with the inclusion of Adele, 25,000 is going to education and 7,000 is going to Roth. And this is for the first 5 years, 2026 to 2030. Um, and in between these years are the auto loan and the HELOC, which will be free, starting in 2028 and 2030. So as these amounts become available, um, they'll then be included in Elvis's retirement accounts, his 401k and his Roth. And just a note about education funding, how to do it in practice. So it's good that you guys have 3 education savings account, and you guys can still follow the same funding spread between 3 accounts. What matters really is being able to change beneficiaries, because as I right here, once college starts for Bing, you can use his own funds first. And if there's a shortfall, you can withdraw from Celine and Shani's to satisfy Bing's needs via beneficiary change. And a beneficiary change, there's no limit or restriction, um, especially between family members. So you could change it as much as you want. But there are caveats. It's just the fact that I was thinking about other strategies too, like rolling over to one account, so not having to worry about changing beneficiary or doing beneficiary changes. But this is much easier, and you don't have to worry about any time restrictions or rollover periods. But yeah, you would just you repeat the process for Celine and Shania, and yeah, because there's that 152,000 amount I was talking about earlier, and just satisfying Bing's 122,000 need. I was thinking about doing a strategy where you roll it over into one account, so that's done. But I figured that was a bit more complicated, and a simpler, more practical method would be just to do a beneficiary change. And this is the standard practice. So, yeah, and there's a note down here. If you do have any, if you guys do have any excess amounts in 529 plan or education savings account, the rollover amount does count against Roth contribution limits. Because normally the excess amounts will be rolled over into our Roth accounts, but just know that they do the rollover amounts does count against the contribution limit. So there's that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just moving on along now to 2031. So once Celine's done, now this is Shani's periods, or 2031, 32. So by now you guys would be age 52 and age 53. So still the same for Elvis, allocating 14,000. But now, from last slide, as I stated earlier, Elvis's 401k and Roth amounts are due to auto loan and HELOC amounts. And so that's why you see the increase in contribution from 10% to 11% here. And Adele, 7,000 to education savings, and 16,000 to 401k, and 8,600 to Roth. Yeah, and then once by 2033, education is over. Now you guys can solely focus on retirement funding. That's why there's such a huge increase from 11% to 22%. And from 7,000 to 23,000. Oh, well, I mean, actually, 16,000 to 23,000, just 7,000 more, right? Yeah. And again, by 2036, you guys will have break even the retirement funding deficit, and you guys have about 5 more years until retirement. And between those years, 26,000 annually, you'll have in excess to address other areas: insurance, estate, and again, additional goals like traveling or your children's weddings. So. And now this is just a chart, an overview chart breakdown from throughout the years of funding, education, retirement, 401k, and retirement Roth. So again, most of the funding is going towards education firstly, and will slowly shift over to retirement funding. That's down here. Oh yeah, and just to note that these funding amounts have not been inflation adjusted. So these amounts could be higher. I mean, not could be, but they can be higher, especially the contribution amounts too, right? Because it seems like every year these contribution amounts are increasing. So instead of it being capped at 86, it could be 90, 97, or 10,000 next year. But of course, this is just a current snapshot, a current funding plan. Yeah, and this is the all-along debt. This is the HELOC debt, and these are slowly increasing. This is retirement contributions. Mm-hmm. Okay, now risk management. Yeah, so as I said earlier, all other areas are good. Health, long-term care, home, auto, personal liability, they're good. As for life insurance, yeah, increase coverage to at least 1.5 million to cover goals and debts, or needs and debts. Disability insurance, buy supplemental or increase coverage to 70% of income. And once if Adele has income, she'll need a disability coverage of 70% of her income, the highest amount. Provisions, you need a own occupation definition and residual or partial disability. And here's an estimation chart of the increase from increasing term life amounts, buying a supplemental or increasing coverage for Elvis, and buying a disability insurance or coverage for Adele. Right, so these are monthly estimations you can see and annual estimations. And I have a note here saying you can reduce the entertainment vacation expenses to satisfy increased insurance premiums. Because, yeah, initially throughout the years, or in 2026, it's going to be real tough trying to find or have income sitting around. So you can reduce the expenses from here to satisfy the insurance premiums. And this is the last slide, guys. Yeah, this is it. So here it's just investments, estate, and tax. So again, earlier, current allocation is 92%, fixed income is 8%. You want to rebalance it to 70% equities and 30% fixed income. And ideally, you want to typically rebalance your portfolio whenever you're near withdrawal phase, so that again, you don't want to risk the high volatility of stocks. So you want to preserve assets by switching over to bonds. And again, there are funds out there that are going to rebalance as target date funds. And as for estate documents, update last wills, right? Beneficiary designations, appoint healthcare, financial POAs, powers of attorneys. And for tax, yeah, again, remain on the current 30-year mortgage schedule. Going to or refinancing to a 15-year mortgage increases payments and timeline. Use Form W4 to reduce tax withholdings. Again, due to the increase in contributions from 401k contributions. And actually, I guess you could use those tax withholdings to satisfy insurance premiums. And lastly, just use or stick with this MFJ, married filing jointly standard deduction. Again, this amount is larger than the itemizing amount. And that's it. Yeah, we're finally done. Oh man. Yeah, it was it was quite the long bit, but I want to thank you guys for hanging in there. Um, yeah, I know this was a long presentation, but hopefully this was aligning and insightful for you guys. Yeah, there was a lot to cover, but I wanted to make sure that it all came together because I know it can be a bit messy trying to figure out where things go, and so hmm yeah, yeah, because these calculation amounts, normal people don't. I guess they can try to do it themselves, but it's very taxing. So, and that's what I'm here for, right? Just to give an analysis of your guys' financial situation and tell you guys how to improve. Um, so, okay. Well, if you guys have any concerns or questions later, um, feel free to reach out and let me know. I'll uh, I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as I can. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks, guys. Take care.